On a rainy street, a 6-year-old boy with autism screams uncontrollably, leaving his mother's arms covered in scratches. This has been the family's daily life for 5 years. Years of endless confrontation without a single word of communication. The love they once held has been worn down into sheer exhaustion. He lives in his own isolated world, refusing to speak and resisting touch. The smallest thing can trigger an emotional meltdown, even leading to self-harming behavior. Wafa, the disorder, has cast a heavy shadow over the family, becoming the breaking point in his parents' relationship. Yet no one imagined that his ultimate redemption would come through a dog. The boy is Kyle, 6 years old, and suffering from severe autism. His mother simply wanted to buy him shoes, but Kyle became extremely defiant, lashing out at the salesperson and violently pulling his mother's hair. Whenever things don't go his way, he loses control, regardless of the occasion. Trying to pull him away from danger, his mother is forcefully pushed away. A truck hurtles toward them, but fortunately it manages to brake in time. Back home, the moment his mother enters the closet, she is locked inside by her son. She calls out to Kyle repeatedly, but there is no response. Worse still, the front door has been left wide open. In a panic, she desperately pounds on the door, exhausting every way to open it, but to no avail. Just as she catches her breath, she hears the sound of glass shattering. Though consumed by worry, she is at least sure her son hasn't run out. Kyle is busy pouring juice for himself, completely oblivious to his mother's presence. Surrounded by broken dishes on the floor, he simply sits before the TV, watching his favorite show, Thomas the Tank Engine. Hearing the familiar sounds of the TV, the mother's racing heart finally settles. But before long, a sudden gust of wind slams the front door shut. In the cloakroom, she was once again overcome by anxiety. The TV sound faded, replaced by the piercing blare of car horns. At that moment, she completely broke down. Thankfully, Kyle heard the knock and opened the door on his own. Seeing her son standing there safe and sound, his mother's eyes welled with tears as she pulled him tightly into her arms. The couple enrolled Kyle in a rehabilitation center, hoping for a breakthrough, but the efforts ultimately failed. Out of options, the mother quit her job at the hospital to dedicate herself to caring for her son at home. Father, overwhelmed by the pressure, developed irreconcilable differences with his wife. He even suggested sending Kyle to a special boarding school, pushing the family to a breaking point, until one day Grandma brought home 2 golden retriever puppies. One of the dogs ran straight to Kyle. He remained expressionless, but he didn't push it away either. Grandma noticed this and stepped forward, asking Kyle to give the dog a name. His favorite cartoon happened to be on TV, and Kyle uttered a single word. Thomas. The arrival of Thomas the dog became a glimmer of hope in Kyle's life, and he slowly began to change. One day, while his mother was holding Thomas, Kyle reached out to touch him. His father was stunned by the sight. That evening, as the family discussed Kyle's progress, Kyle dragged a blanket over and placed it in the dog's bed. Then, taking Thomas from his mother, he softly whispered a few words. "Bedtime, Thomas." This simple phrase left the couple in utter shock. It was the first time their son had spoken of his own accord. The next morning, the father was awakened by noises from outside. He found Kyle happily playing with Thomas. He quickly woke his sleeping wife to listen to the joyful sounds of their son. The couple finally shared a long-awaited smile. Later, they went to the pet store and bought a whole load of supplies for Thomas. Just as they were about to leave, they saw a sight they could never have imagined.
"This is my dog. His name is Thomas. He's just a puppy, but he'll grow up to be a big dog." The dog's presence had surprisingly made Kyle seem like a completely different person.
One day, Kyle was wrestling over a toy with Thomas, but he couldn't get it away from him. He walked up to his father dejectedly and said, "Thomas doesn't want to share his toys with me this time, but I'm sure he will next time." Later, Kyle went back to the rehabilitation center. Seeing him playing alone, the teacher encouraged him to join the other children. Kyle didn't respond at first. The teacher had long been used to his withdrawal, but what Kyle said next left the teacher in utter shock.
"So they don't get it dirty at night. Let's see, wow."
"What did you say, Kyle? Don't want to make the house dirty and smelly. The teacher was truly happy for him from the bottom of her heart. You see, in the past, he would even wet himself right in the classroom. At bedtime, the mother went to her son's room to talk with him. She opened the door to a heartwarming sight. Kyle was already fast asleep. Before this, he couldn't drift off without his mother's constant coaxing. This sight filled the mother with a deep sense of relief. As days passed, Thomas grew into a big dog, and Kyle changed immensely, yet he remained somewhat distant toward his parents, often ignoring his mother's presence. Looking at her son, the mother couldn't help but tear up, but she never stopped believing that a miracle would happen. It just needed a little more time.
Thomas, come to bed. Stop playing with Dad. Did you hear what he just called you, Night? Night, son. Not Dad. Come on, Thomas, bed. Good night, Kyle. Not Mom seeing the change in her son. All of the past heartaches and sacrifices
Vanish into thin air at this very moment. One day, Mom accidentally came across a book with a simple, unrefined drawing inside. Yet she was instantly moved. This was the first time she had ever seen her son's handiwork. In the past, she wouldn't have even dared to imagine such a thing. But life is never smooth sailing. One day, a single remark from Mom caused Kyle to lose control instantly. He spiraled again, even resorting to self-harm to vent his emotions. It felt as though they had suddenly regressed to where they started. He frantically pulled his mother's hair. Despite their best efforts, the parents were helpless. Just then, Thomas stepped forward. With just one look, Kyle calmed down immediately. He obediently walked over to Thomas to apologize. Watching this, the couple was overcome with a mix of emotions, unsure whether to feel joyful or sorrowful. Without realizing it, Thomas had become Kyle's exclusive therapist. Had Grandma not brought the dog home, the mother might have reached her breaking point long ago. Shortly after, the wife told her husband she was pregnant with their second child. The couple was full of hope, knowing that whether it was a brother or a sister would provide the companionship Kyle needed. Even after they are gone, Kyle will never have to be alone. As the dog significantly improved Kyle's condition, the couple decided to bring Thomas to school to help other children with autism. The teacher initially worried that Thomas's presence might frighten the children, but to her surprise, the children flocked to him, playing happily with Thomas. In Thomas's company, the children instantly began to open their hearts. Even more surprisingly, Kyle, who used to prefer his own world, began to take the initiative to interact with his classmates. Everything seemed to be taking a turn for the better, but happy times are often fleeting. While the family was immersed in this warmth, Mom suddenly got a call from the hospital. Grandma was in emergency care, fading away with her final breaths. As a daughter, she was frantic with worry, knowing she had to take Kyle to see her mother one last time. But Kyle had another meltdown. No matter what his mother said, she couldn't get through to him. She was torn between her dying mother and her son, who required constant care. At this moment, she was caught in a heart-wrenching dilemma. Luckily, she spotted Kyle's old stroller. Without a second thought, she pushed him and raced toward the hospital. But by the time they arrived, Grandma had already passed away. She had missed her mother's final moments after all. As a daughter, she finally broke down, her heart aching so much she could hardly breathe. Kyle still didn't understand the concept of death at the funeral. He showed no signs of grief, only wanting to reach for his favorite toy train placed on the coffin. Perhaps this was his own unique way of saying goodbye. Grandma's passing left Mom trapped in a deep well of sorrow. Though she was a mother herself, she no longer had a mother of her own. What's even more distressing is that due to days of exhaustion and excessive grief, she suffered a miscarriage. When it was time for school, Kyle became extremely resistant. At the mere mention of school, he spiraled out of control and even slapped her. Overwhelmed by hurt and frustration, she felt helpless against her son and could only pull him into a tight, desperate embrace. The father's attempts to calm him were in vain. Kyle struggled and broke free, running over and giving Thomas a hard kick. Seeing this, his mother finally reached her breaking point.
That's it, it's finished. I will not have you. making that dog's life a misery. Now get out. This was the first time she had ever lost her temper with her son in all these years.
As Thomas whimpered in pain, one has to ask, what mother wouldn't break down in a situation like this? The father tended to Thomas, trying to ease his suffering. To prevent this from happening again, the couple staged a little performance. The mother pretended to call Thomas's previous owner and said that Kyle had kicked Thomas for no reason, leaving him in pain and distress. Thomas would have to be sent back. Hearing that Thomas was being sent away, Kyle finally realized what he had done. He kept apologizing to Thomas, tearfully promising never to kick him again. Soon the boy and the dog were back to their old selves, happily playing together every day. On Christmas Day, the family gathered around the table for dinner. It should have been a joyful reunion, but they couldn't find any happiness as a key person was missing from the table. Grandma. The father offered Thomas some treats, but Thomas only sniffed at them and wouldn't eat. The husband even joked, asking if his wife's cooking skills had declined. But before they could finish the conversation, Thomas suddenly ran outside. The father tried to carry him back inside, but Thomas refused to get up. After taking him to the vet for an exam, the couple learned the truth. Thomas was sick, critically ill. The doctor asked the mother if Thomas had ever taken a fall. He had severe internal injuries with his organs badly damaged, and he could pass away at any moment. The mother's eyes instantly welled up. She knew Thomas hadn't fallen. Kyle had kicked him. She tearfully pleaded with the doctor to save Thomas, because in her heart, Thomas was no longer just a dog. He was family, the only hope for her son. After returning home, the mother stayed by Thomas's side every day, taking meticulous care of him. Kyle stopped throwing tantrums and sat obediently by Thomas's side, telling him stories and cheering him on, hoping he would recover soon and play with him again. The couple was filled with anxiety. They feared losing Thomas more than anything. After all, their son's progress with autism was all thanks to Thomas. What would become of their son if Thomas were gone? Fortunately, Thomas was still young. Under the family's devoted care, he soon made a full recovery. Kyle took him to the park for walks to bask in the sun. It was then that he looked at his mother and whispered, "And Kyle loves his mom." What did you say, Kyle? Kyle loves his moms. This long-awaited confession was the ultimate reward for years of parental devotion. It also proves the fact that children with autism do not lack the capacity for love. It's just that their love requires far more patience and companionship. The movie, After Thomas, is a 2006 heartwarming British film directed by Simon Shaw. It is based on the true story of Dale, a Scottish boy with autism, and his therapy dog, Henry. The film avoids a cliché fairy tale ending, instead portraying the raw struggle and perseverance of an autistic family. It explores themes of education and companionship for children with autism and the unbreakable bond that transcends species. It showcases the power of selfless family love. True healing is never a one-sided rescue, but a mutual warming and fulfillment between two lives. Through patient companionship and silent acceptance, love can finally melt the ice of isolation and reach the depths of the heart.